Welcome to today's talk. Let's start with watching a video. Okay, this is a little bit about us. Welcome everyone. Good evening, everyone. We help companies to take their first real step on their sustainability journey. We are headquartered in Singapore, and we have teams across Indonesia, Cambodia, Malaysia, Thailand, and the Philippines. So you'll get to meet most of them as we run free weekly talks, just like this one. So stay connected. So one grant, we are in 6 countries. We have 102 projects. We have now about 25 consultants, and we have 17 standard at least, and it's growing. And this is our present. Now, beyond reporting, we also offer consulting, carbon credit project, and training. And one thing that we are particularly proud of, we have a policy arm called Climax Policy Lab, where we do active standard contribution works at the global level. Now, our core expertise is sustainability reporting. We work across globally recognized standards such as ISSB, SASB, ISO 14064, ISO 14067, and ISO 14068, covering everything from ESG disclosure to GHG reporting, carbon neutrality, and products carbon footprints. In total, we work across 17 standards, including assurance. Now, so you might be wondering what exactly standards contributions means, right? Let me make it very simple for you. Now, first, they are the standard sector. The big names like ISSB, SASB, GHG Protocol, SBTI, and VERA, they create the rules. Then they are the standard users, the preparer who write the reports, the editors, the auditors, regulators, and data companies. So they follow the rules. But there's also a unique group that sits right in the middle, and that where we come in as a standards contributor. So what that means is we provide technical commentary directly to the standards setters, helping shape and improve the standards through exposure draft and technical consultations. Now, in short, we don't just use the standard, we help build them, backed by our real, on-the-ground working experience. Now, quick housekeeping. Before we start, this session is recorded for learning purposes, so please keep your mic muted so we can keep the audio clean. Got any questions, just drop them in the chat. My team will answer, or we can cover them in the Q&A sessions. And please don't hold back on your question. The only real mistake is staying silent and not asking, right? Okay, let's start. Now, again, good evening, everyone. Welcome for those who just joined. So the title of today's session is Malaysia National Sustainability Reporting Framework, Regulator Maturity versus Practical Readiness. So those two words, maturity and readiness, are doing a lot of work because they are not the same thing. Malaysia has crossed into a more matured regulatory environment. The rules are here. They are clear. They are globally aligned. but maturity is in regulations that's not automatically translate into readiness in operations. Okay, so let's start with the most important question of all. Why are we in this room? Okay, four reasons. First, Malaysia NSRF is here. It was launched by the Securities Commissions on the 24th of September 2024. This is not a proposal, not a consultation paper, not something coming in a few years. It is law. It is enforced. So second, reporting has fundamentally changed its character. What used to be a voluntary communication exercise, your annual sustainability report, your CSR sections has become a formal disclosure obligations. So the same discipline, the same accountability, the same consequences as your financial statement. Third, there's a difference between regulatory maturity and operational readiness. Malaysia has achieved the first. The question is whether your company has achieved the second. So, and fourth, this is a practical sessions. We are not here to talk about ESG in general or sustainability as a concept or what some company in Europe is doing. We are here to talk about what you need to do, especially concretely and in a timeline that start now. So before we dive in, let me tell you exactly what I want you to walk away with today. All right. Now, 5 things. 1, a clear understanding of what the NSRF actually is, not the buzzwords, but not also the acronym soup, but what is really required and why it was built the way it was. Now, second, clarity on the timeline. Who needs to report, from when, and what the phases means in practice. Number third, an honest picture of the gap between regulatory compliance and operational readiness. Because these are 2 different things, and confusing them is how companies get caught out. Fourth, practical plans. By the time we finished, you should be able to go back to your organization and say, here is what we need to do in the next 12 months. So, and 5, a benchmark. We will look at Singapore, which is slightly ahead of Malaysia in this journey, to understand what mandatory disclosure actually look like once it is live. So these are not abstract learning objective. These are the things that will make a difference to your organizations. So let me make this real for you right now. Now, approximately 130 Malaysian company, the largest name on Bursa main market, those with a market capitalizations of 2 billion ringgit and above are already in scope. The first reporting period is financial year 2025. That means the disclosure are being prepared right now as we sit here, and the number of companies will broaden because you are likely to be part of the supply chain. So let me ask you directly in the chat, perhaps maybe you can or raise your hand, but I prefer you to type, okay, for me. Type 1 if your company is ready. So leave in the chat box, type 1 if your company is ready. So type 2 for me if you are not sure yet or that's not ready, right? There's no wrong answer, but I promise the answer matter, right? So wait for a little while. You can just leave, type either 1 or 2. So which where your situation is, where company situation is, and then just leave it onto the chat box for me. And that the honest moment of what not being sure, right, is exactly why we are here. Yeah. I didn't see the chat moving. Is all thing okay? Give me a thumbs up. Is all right? Give me a thumbs up. Okay. Now, and that honest moment of not being sure is exactly why we are here. Okay, okay, keep coming in, keep coming in. Okay, the clock has started. The question is not whether to comply. The question is how ready your organization actually is to do so. Is in credible, defensible way. Keep coming in. Thank you. Okay, you continue. You continue, give me the answer. Yeah. Okay, let me continue here. Before we go any further, let's make sure everyone is speaking the same language. You're going to hear a lot of acronym today, like NSRF, ISSB, IFRS S1, IFRS S2, TCFD, GHG. It can feel like alphabet soup if you are not used to it. So I want to ground us quickly. Right, the NSRF is Malaysia national framework. It's built on ISSB standards, which are set by the International Sustainability Standards Board, the global body that has created a common language for sustainability disclosure. IFRS S1 is the foundation. It covers all sustainability risk and opportunity. IFRS is where we start, specifically to climax. So when we talk about scope 1, 2, and 3, that's where your emissions, direct energy, related and value change. Materiality under NSRF means financial materiality, what affects your enterprise value. We'll come back to that because it is critical switch for most Malaysian company. And assurance, think of like an external audit, but for your sustainability, but it is for your sustainability data. Keep this slide in mind as we reference every term we use today is on this grid. Okay. Okay, next. Okay, the NSRF did not emerge in a vacuum. To understand why Malaysia built this way, you need to understand what's happening globally. The word major economic are convergence on the common sustainability disclosure standard. That standard is set by the ISSB, the International Sustainability Standards Board, which produce IFRS S1 and S2. These are the global baseline that jurisdictions build their own framework on top of. The European Union went first with the CSRD, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. It is the broadest regime in the world, applying to tens of thousands of companies. The EU is always the most advanced. Companies there have already filed their first reports. Australia is running a phased climax disclosure regime starting with its largest entity from 2025. So Singapore, which we will come back to later, as listed insurer reporting from financial year 2025, closely mirroring what Malaysia is doing. And Malaysia phased the rollout from 2025 to 2027, ISSB aligned or through the NSRF. The point here is not to compare. The point here is that this is a global movement. And Malaysia is not an outlier. It is participating in the same direction as every major economy in the region and beyond. Okay. Okay. So what exactly is the NSRF? The National Sustainability Reporting Framework addresses the use of IFRS S1 and IFRS S2 as the baseline sustainability disclosure standard for companies in Malaysia. It also set the assurance requirement, which we will cover shortly. It was launched by the SC, Security Commissions, on the 24th of September 2024. The goal is direct. Ensure corporate Malaysia provides sustainability information that is consistent, comparable, and reliable, so that investors, both domestic and international, can trust and use it. And this sits in a broader context. the whole Asian region is moving in the same direction. Okay. Singapore is slightly ahead. Their listed assurer are already filing in from 2025. They are useful benchmark for what this journey look like once it become live. Not because Malaysia is behind Singapore, but because Singapore showed us what the practical challenges look like once mandatory reporting is actually enforced. So Malaysia is moving with the region on its own timing and with its own context, but in the same direction. Okay. Okay, now let's go into the engine of the framework. IFRS S1 and IFRS S2 are always applied together. They are not alternative, they are complementary. Think of IFRS S1 as the building code. It set the architecture for all sustainability disclosure. It covers all sustainability risk and opportunity, not just climax. So it is required you to disclose across 4 pillars that you will hear a lot today: governance, strategies, risk management, and metrics and targets. And critically, it connects sustainability disclosure to your financial statement. What you report in your sustainability statement must be consistent with what appears in your financial. So IFRS S2 is the first room you must build. And it sits on top of S1 foundation. So this is your foundation, so build on it, right? But focusing exclusively on climax. So physical risk like flood and heat. Transition risk is like carbon pricing, stranded asset, and it requires 3 things beyond the 4 pillars: the scenario analysis, the GHG emissions reporting at scope 1 and 2 from the start, and the transition plan if you make net zero or emission reduction commitment. So S2 cannot stand alone. Every time you read on S2 requirement, S1 is underneath it, setting the principle, the materiality lens, and the connection to enterprise value. Okay, let's go a level deeper into IFRS S1 because this is where the real work lies. Give me a thumbs up if my speed is okay. Yeah. Okay. S1 is built around 4 pillars, right? Governance, who at the board level is accountable for sustainability, not just the board oversees it, which committee, how often do they meet on this, or what skills do they have. Strategy is like how do sustainability risks affect your business model and cash flow over short, medium, and long term. And risk management is sustainability risk identifications integrated with your enterprise risk management process. So at metric and targets, what are you measuring? What target have you set? And are you tracking the progress? So 2 things consistently catch companies off guard, right? First, connected information. So your sustainability disclosure must be consistent with your financial statement. So if you declare flooding as a material risk in your sustainability reporting, but there is no corresponding impairment, provision, or adjustment in your financial, that is a disclosure failure under S1 because the 2 documents must speak in the same language. So second, the time horizons. S1 require you to formally define what is short-term, medium-term, and long-term, which means that for your company, right? And why those definitions fit your business model. You can't just say long-term and leave it undefined, okay, undefined. So S1 is asking you to treat sustainability the way a CFO treat risk. So which with the discipline, with the evidence, and with the accountability as well, right? Okay, now what is IFRS S2? So this is where rubber meets the road for the most company because this is where abstract climate risk becomes specific, become measurable, and become reportable. Now, it starts with two types of risk. Physical risk are what climate change does to your operations and assets. Acute event like flood and chronic changes like rising sea level or water stress. Now, transition risk are what the global response to climate change does to your business. The carbon pricing, regulatory switch, changing customer preferences, technology disruptions. Now, beyond the four pillars, S2 has three specific requirements that are operationally heavy. First, scenario analysis. You must stress test your business under at least two climate pathways. Typically, a low warming scenario like 1.5 or 2 degrees and a higher warming scenario. The question is this: how resilient is your strategy under each? This is a forward-looking work, not a historical summary. Second, GHG emissions. Scope 1 and Scope 2 are mandatory from day one. Scope 3 is Scope 3 is phased in, but don't mistake that this phase as a permission to ignore it. No, we will come back to Scope 3 specifically later on, right? Now, third, transition plan. If your company has made any net zero or carbon reduction commitment publicly or otherwise, S2 require you to show how you're going to get there. Capital allocation, timeline, milestone are not just a commitment, but it is a plan, right? Okay, this is one of the most important slides in the entire presentation. So I want you to really sit on this one. Now, most Malaysian companies that have been doing sustainability reporting, whether voluntary or under BUSA, existing requirements have been using impact materiality. So what does this mean? That is the GRI lens. So it asks, what does your company do to the world? How much waste? How many injury? How much water consumed? So sometimes you heard of, right? You heard of, or you read some reports on the RGI. Sometimes you heard of this IDG. So this is put on the lens of our GRI. So now let's take a look in Malaysia. The NSRF uses a completely different lens, which is we call financial materiality. It's asked the opposite question. What does the world do to your business? What risk? From climates, from regulations, from changing market condition could affect your enterprise value, your cash flow, your cost of capital, right? So every time we have to put on this lens because this is the requirement from NSRF. This is not a subtle difference. It is a fundamental reorientation of what sustainability reporting is for. Now, under this NSRF, you are reporting for investor, lender, and regulator. So not for stakeholder who want to know your environmental impact, right? So there is still a third model, which is double materiality, which is used in EU, which require both lens simultaneously. Malaysia does not use this. So if your company also report to EU stakeholder, you may need to consider this separately. But under NSRF, you follow the ISSB financial lens only, which is in the middle of my screen, right? Okay, continue. So what does this actually look like in practice? Now, what do you disclose, and what does readiness look like behind it? The disclosure framework has four pillars. Governance, who at the board level is accountable. So how often they engage, what escalation look like. Strategy is how risk affect your business model and financial performance. Risk management, how sustainability is integrated into your existing enterprise risk process. And metric and targets is specific number, a baseline year, a target year, and a progress tracking. So but disclosure is only half the picture. The other half is readiness. So the operational infrastructure that make your disclosure credible. So readiness has three components. So first is board level ownership. Now, sustainability reporting cannot sit in a solo ESG team. It needs board accountability formally in writing in the committee's terms of reference, and sustainability is now under the purview of the board, right? So second, cross-functional process. Now, finance, risk, and operations need to work together. The CFO needs to own the financial connection, and the CRO needs to own the risk integration. So the sustainability team coordinates but cannot carry it alone. So the third, data with an audit trail. Every number you report needs to be traceable to the source. Now, because in 2 or 3 years, an assurer provider will ask to see the trail. So if it doesn't exist, you are not ready. Yeah, remember this. So this is the central tension of this entire presentation. So, and I want to name it clearly. Okay. So on the left-hand side of this slide is that Malaysia has achieved regulatory maturity, and the rules are clear, structured, globally aligned, and enforced. The Security Commission has done its part. So on the right-hand side is operational reality inside most Malaysian companies. So sustainability data is fragmented. It's lived in spreadsheet owned by different teams, with no centralized governance. Internal control over the data are weak or even non-existent. Numbers are hard to trace to their source. Board oversight is informal, and assurance readiness, the ability to have an external party independently verify your data, is still developing. So that gap in the middle between what the rule required and what organizations can currently deliver is the real challenge. So, and it is challenge that this session is designed to help you to close this gap, right? So now the companies that will differentiate themselves are not those that know the rule best. They are one who build the operational infrastructure to deliver credible, traceable, and assurer-ready disclosure. So that is what readiness look like. Okay, now let's get specific on who need to report and when. Okay. Now the first, the NSRF roll out in 3 groups. So group 1 is the largest company of Bursa main market with the market cap of 2 billion ringgit and above. That approximately about 130 companies representing more than 80% of Bursa total market capitalizations. Their first reporting period is financial year 2025. And group 2, all remaining main market listed company. First report is in financial year 2026. The group 3 is ACE market, ACE market listed insurers and large non-listed company with the group revenue of 2 billion ringgit or above for 2 consecutive years. First report will be in financial year 2027. So 2 things apply across all groups. First, everyone start with the climax, which is IFRS S2 first. Now we transition release before full IFRS S1 kick in. Second is the assurance, and scope 3 come later, but they are coming. So group 1 face the reasonable assurance on scope 1 and 2 from 2027. So the phasing exists to give company time to build the readiness. It is not permission to wait, but just give you more time to build your readiness, right? Okay, next. Let's zoom in. Let's zoom in into group 1. Now, because if you are in this group or you advise company in this group, you are in the hot seat right now. Now, another one, in year 2025 is already underway. Year 1 require climate governance, strategy and risk disclosure. It is under IFRS S2. So scope 1 and 2 emission measured using the GHG protocol. But if you have make any climate-related targets or have a transition plan, those must be disclosed. So the release, no scope 3, no comparative, are still real requirement, but just differ. For financial year 2026, broaden the scope. IFRS S1 sustainability topic beyond climate start to come in. Comparative from financial year 2025 are now required. So from financial year 2027 is where the hardest requirement arrived with its full IFRS S1 and S2, and also scope 3 becomes mandatory, and critically reasonable assurance on scope 1 and 2. That means an external party will verify your emission data. So here is the critical message for group 1. So if you cannot start building for 2027 in 2026, the data system, the governance structure, the internal control, the assurance readiness, those take about 12 to 18 months to build. So the work have to start now, no? But even earlier, right? Okay, although you are not in the 130 companies, if you are supplying to these companies directly or indirectly, therefore this 130 company will ask you for the report as you are part of their value chain, right? So if you're not in a group 1, but you are supplying to the company in group 1, so you are in the part of their value chain. So you have to get ready as well, right? Okay, group 2, you have 1 extra year compared to group 1. For financial year 2026 is your first reporting period, but I want to be direct with you. 1 year is not as long as it feels. It's come very quickly. So your 2026 requirement mirror group 1, year 1. Climate governance, strategy, and risk, scope 1 and 2 emissions, same transition release apply. Same transition relief apply. And you have a real advantage here. Group 1, year 2025, financial year 2025 report will be published in 2026. So before you file, so you can learn from what they got right and what they got wrong. So that is a genuine head start using it. But here is the risk for group 2. Now, most companies in this group have not started the operational work. Data infrastructure is missing. Board governance is informal. Scope 1 and 2 emissions have never been measured in a way that could survive scrutiny. Now, running a gap analysis, appointing data owner, building internal controls, training the board, that alone takes 6 to 12 months. If you start the works in 2026, you will be filing simultaneously with your preparation. That is not a good position to be, right? So start now. Okay, let's take a look at group 3. Now, group 3 is often the group that gets left out of NSRF conversations. ACEA's market companies and large non-listed companies, you shouldn't be left out because 2027 is closer than it's feels. And the obligations escalate quickly. In 2027, your first report, Climate First IFRS S2, Scope 1 and 2. In 2028, IFRS S1 broader sustainability topic start to come in. In 2029, just 2 years after your first report, reasonable assurance on Scope 1 and 2 required. In 2030, Scope 3 becomes mandatory. So for NLC, especially, the 2 billion ringgit threshold is calculated on group revenue for 2 consecutive financial years. Or 1 year above the threshold is not enough. It must be 2 consecutive years. So, and here is the hardest truth for many group 3 companies, maybe large NLCs. So have never produced a formal sustainability report ever. Starting from 0 in 2027 is already too late. So the preparation need to start now. So today, so that when 2027 arrive, you have something credible to published. Okay, time check, 9 to 6. Okay. 906, huh? Okay, here's the master picture that concludes just now what I shared with you, right? So all three group across the full 2027 to 2030 timeline. The full picture is here. So look at the structure. So every group starts with climate reporting first, right? So take a look which group are you belong to. Then from this picture that you're able to see the timeline. So when this IFRS S2 start, scope 1, scope 2, then broaden to full IFRS S1 sustainability topic, then add assurance, then add scope 3. So the stagnant between group give you breathing room. But notice how quickly the obligations stack up. Group 1 faces assurance in 2027. Just 2 years after the first reporting, Group 3 follow the same pattern as well, just shifted by 2 years. Use this timeline as your planning documents. Wherever your company sits on this table, find your role, find your next milestone, and work backward from it. Okay, work backward. That's more fun. Okay, so this one in short, the NSRF include 5 additional transition relief ATR to help companies to get started. Let me go you through very quickly. All right. In short, ATR 1, in your first year, you only need to report climate-related risk under IFRS S2. Broader sustainability topic under S1 can be deferred. Let me see. Is there any message? Okay. No. Okay, let me continue. ATR 2, you can focus climate disclosure on your principal business segment, not every single segment, useful for large conglomerates. ATR 3, Scope 3 emissions are deferred. Group 1 for 2 period, Group 3 is for 3. But Scope 3 is not gone, it's just become mandatory. So ATR 4 is no prior year comparative required in year 1. So most companies have no baseline data. It is released to acknowledge that reality. So ATR 5 is the hardest S1 requirement. Connecting sustainability risk to actual business strategy and decision can be deferred for year 1. Now, here is the most important thing I want you to take from this slide. The release do not make your year 1 easy. You still need scope 1 and scope 2 emission. You still need climate governance strategies and risk disclosure. That is a substantial operation challenge, even with all 5 release applied. Okay. Okay, let's go. Continue. Scope 3 deserve. Okay, this one, scope 3. Scope 3 deserve its own slide. Because this is consistently the most underestimated challenge in sustainability reporting for most Malaysian companies, scope 3, all indirect emission outside your direct operation and purchase energy, represent 70 to 90% of total emissions, and yet it is entirely outside your direct control. So it lives in your supply chain, in the products you sell, in the way your customers use those products, in your finance emissions, if you are a bank or fund manager. Now the NSRF give you a release. Group 1 and 2 have 2 cycles before scope 3. So it's mandatory. So group 3 has 3 cycles. But here is what the table should tell you, right? The mandatory dates are not far away. Group 1 face group 3 from year 2007, and that is now already, right? And here, why you cannot wait? Collecting data, scope 3 data required engaging your supplier, right? So hundreds of thousands of them, getting them to measure and share their emission data, agreeing on methodology, building a system to aggregate it, that process alone take about 12 to 18 months. So even before you get to analyze and report, the release defer the deadline, it does not defer the work. Okay, let's move on. Assurance is coming. The assurance, what is this assurance, right? It is require a completely different level of data discipline that most Malaysian company currently have. There are 2 levels, this limited assurance and reasonable assurance. So what does this mean? Limited assurance is a lower bar. The practitioners perform limited procedures and concludes nothing came to our attention. It is a negative conclusion. Now, reasonable assurance is what NSRF required. It is closer to a full financial audit, extensive testing, sampling, verification a positive conclusion. We are satisfied. This is materially correct, right? Now for group 1, reasonable assurance on scope 1 and 2 begin in financial year 2027. Group 2 from 2028. Group 3 is from 2029. Before an assurance provider can give you the opinion, 5 things must be in place. A documented methodology for how you collected the data, internal control over that data, clear ownership of every data point, a full audit trail traceable back to original source, and pioneer comparative. In your data today is sitting in spreadsheet with no version control, no ownership register, no audit trail. It cannot survive reasonable assurance. So this question is not whether this day is coming, it is whether you will be ready when it's arrived. So remember, collecting data, how you collect it is also very important, okay? All right, let's move on. So this slide, okay. Not everyone in this room is in group 1, right? Or in group 2 or group 3. Some of you are in company that are not yet required to report. This slide is for you. Voluntary adoption is not about being a good corporate citizen, but it's about a strategic positioning, right? If your company is adopting using the voluntary adoptions, so there is a strategic positioning here. Supply chain pressure. If you supply to a group 1 company, they will need your emission data for their scope 3 reporting. Just a touch on it, right? Now, 2, they will start asking you their supplier for that data before the mandatory date. If you cannot respond, you will lose that commercial leverage. Investor and lender readiness. ESG-linked financial is growing rapidly in Malaysia. Green bond, sustainability-linked loan, bank are screening for sustainability credit credentials. Early adopter get better term and broader access to the capital. Talent. Now, the next generations of professionals is evaluating employer on this. A credible sustainability report is a talent signal. Regulatory directions. The 2 billion ringgit revenue threshold for NLCs likely tighten over time. If you wait until you're forced to comply, now you will be starting from zero under a compressed timeline with a higher consultant cost, most likely, yeah? So the question is not whether you will eventually need to do this. The question is whether you want to build the capability on your own term or under pressure, right? So make your wise decision. Okay, next slide. This is a slide that I want you to hold up against your own organization. Last sustainability report. A mistake number 1. This one for reference. Mistake number 1, boilerplate governance language. The board oversees sustainability matter and receive regular update from management. So almost every Malaysian SR, in short SR, has a sentence like this. So under IFRS S2, it is not a governance disclosure. S2 requires you to name which committee, how often they meet on climate specific, what climate relevant skill the board has, and how management escalate issue upward. Generic language fail the substance test. So mistake number 2, vouch target. Now we are committed to reduce our carbon footprints over time. So this is not target. IFRS S1 and S2 require specific metric, a baseline year, a target year, and a current progress against it. Without those 4 elements, you have a commitment, not a disclosure, right? Okay, next. Mistake number 3, confusing TCFD. TCFD is Task Force Climate Financial Disclosure. All right. So this confusing TCFD with ISSB. Many companies have done good TCFD work and are now relabeling it as IFRS S2 compliant. That is not how it works. TCFD was voluntary and narrative. IFRS S2 has specific quantitative requirement. Scope 1 and 2 emission with a specific methodology. Scenario analysis with a name pathway across industry metric category that TCFD never required. If you have a TCFD report, run a proper gap analysis right? Before you call it ISSB compliance. Okay, let's move. Now, two more critical mistake. And this two tends to be the hardest to fix because they require the deepest change in how the organization works. Mistake number 4, not connecting sustainability risk to the financial statement. This is where the ISSB framework fundamentally differ from everything that came before under IFRS S1. Your sustainability reports and your financial statement must tell the same story. If you declare a climate risk as material in your sustainability statement, but your financial statement show no impairment, no provisions, no going concern note, no capex adjustment, that is a disclosure failure. The CFO and the CSO need to be reviewing both documents together before they publish. Mistake number 5, generic scenario analysis. This is most common gap I see in a company that think they have done the work. We consider a 1.5 degrees Celsius and a 4 degrees Celsius scenario and believe our business is resilient. That's not scenario analysis, right? Under IFRS S2. S2 require you to name the specifically pathway you used. The IEA net zero by 2050 or IPCC RCP 8.5. Whatever is appropriate for your sector, is require you to identify the specific physical and transition risk you tested. It require a time horizon and it require quantification or at minimal a rigorous narrative explanation of the financial impact. If your scenario analysis does not include those elements, it is not compliant, right? Okay, next. Now this slide. Okay, this slide, Singapore is the most useful benchmark for Malaysia. Okay. Let's see. Now, not because the two systems are identical, but because Singapore is approximately 1 or 2 years ahead of Malaysia in the same journey. Their listed issuers are filing right now. Here are what Singapore experience shows us. And I want to frame this as a positive lesson, not a warning. Okay? First, data quality was the real battleground. Company that had invested in proper emission measurement system before the mandatory date, not in the final months, but in the years before, produced disclosure that were credible and comparable. Companies that scrambled at the deadline produced reports that were technically filed but full of gaps and caveats. Second, governance documentation matter more than most board expect. The most common regulator feedback on early SGX filing was insufficient evidence of board-level climate oversight, not absent of governance, insufficient documentation of governance. The work was happening, but not recorded in a way that could be evident. Third, and this is the positive message, prepare company pull ahead. Once mandatory reporting is live, the quality differentiation between prepared and unprepared company become visible to everyone, to investor, to lender, to supply chain partner. Preparation is a competitive advantage. So Malaysia still has time. So use Singapore experience as your guide, not your cautionary tale. Okay. Time check. Oh, I better be quick. Okay, this is the most actionable. I have only 9 minutes. This is the most actionable slide in the entire deck, and I want to use this as a moment of commitment. All right. So you can. I have this. I showed you that from month 1 until month 24. Right. So what you can do is you try to work backward depending on your situations. Right? I quickly run through 1 or 2 steps because of the timing. All right. So this is the most actionable. Step 1, run a gap analysis, gap assessment. Right. So diagnose where you stand against and not survey level review, a proper gap analysis that map your current data, process, governance, and control again what the standard required. So you output, you mark whether it's red, it's amber, it's a green status report. Then you will know where you start. And owner, your CSO or your head of sustainability, you have to name. All right. So step 2 also map owner and data source. Right. So this is the month that when you book whether you have enough time, you have not enough time, then you can shorten the time again. All right. You do the mapping. So assign accountability for every single data point you will need to report. Where does the data lie? Who owns this, which team, which system, which process. The output will be the data ownership register, who is the owner. It can be CFO and head of responsibility, the sustainability together. Step 3, build the internal control. Okay, step 4, define role and governance. Step 5, set the readiness roadmap, right? So like in the months of 6 to 12, sequence all the work, set deadline, assign budget, build towards the first disclosure with quarterly checkpoint, get board approval. So who is the owner, right? Name them, right? Okay. So all this you must start doing already if you haven't do so, right? So month number 13 to 24 are where the work you built in the first year become a real disclosure. So step 1, your first SR, the financial, the sustainability statement get filed. Climate first, remember, transition release, apply where eligible. This is a milestone, but it is not the finish line. It is just the first time your organization's sustainability data faces external visibility. So step 2, scope 3 data collection begin. All right, so this is how. So your CPO, your procurement team, your supply chain leader, they need to be engaged now. Map your value chain, identify your highest impact supplier category, start building the methodology. So this take about 12 to 18 months. So from here you can continue seeing that. All right. Okay, step number 3, internal assurance readiness review. So step number 4, engage the external assurer provider. Okay, so let's say, for example, in this part, if you wanted us eco sustainability be your second party assurance, well, you can contact us as well if you need that part to do some checking for you as well, right? So step number 4, engaging that external assurance provider come in. So step number 5, your second disclosure. By month 24, reporting should not be a project anymore that consume your sustainability team every year. It should be a process embedded in how the business operate, and that is what matured disclosure look like. Okay. We are coming to an end of our time together. So this is, I want to leave you with one thought that I hope stay with you long after these sessions. All right, 5 minutes. The NRSF is not just a reporting requirement. All right. Yes, it is a legal obligation. Yes, there are deadline, disclosure formats, and assurance requirement. The ACSR approach focuses on corrective action first, but willful or serious non-appliances can still attract enforcement. So all of that is true, right? So, but at the heart, the NSRF is a governance test. It is asking for organization, do you understand the risk that climate and sustainability create for your business? Have you structured your governance to oversee those risks? Can you measure what matter, evidence what you claim, and be held accountable for what you report? Now, those are not reporting questions. These are governance questions. They are questions about what kind of company you are, how you earn the trust of the people and institutions that depends on you. Regulatory maturity is here. The rules are structured, globally aligned, and enforced. Practical readiness, that is what separates the companies that will lead from those that will follow. The questions I want to leave you with this is not, are we compliant? The question is, are you ready? Thank you. Okay. So, question. Any question? And a question you can, I'm not able to see my chat very clearly, but I believe that my friend, my colleague, answer the question. Okay, keep coming in. The question will keep coming in. My colleague will help me to answer. I still have 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes. Okay, allow me to continue to give you more information here. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I know it's a little bit meaty, a little bit long, but still, thank you so much for spending your time with me. All right. Now, you don't do you still continue to have a question? Please do not hold back. Continue to drop it in the chat box. All right. Continue to drop it in the chat box. My friends, my colleague will help me to answer. Okay. I hope you are walking away with at least one mindset shift I talked about at the beginning. Sustainability reporting is no longer optional. It is a business tool for you. Now, we would like to see you again on our next sessions. Until then, take care and stay curious. That I let you know that this slide that I showed you to let you, if you have any inquiry, please reach out. Myself is taking care of Singapore and Malaysia market. My colleague, Ting, is taking care of Malaysia market. And Henry and Ariel, they are taking care of Indonesia market. If you from Indonesia, please reach out to them. Take a screenshot, take a photo of the screen. And if you're from the Philippines, please reach out to CD. And if you are from Thailand, please reach out to my colleague Sharinet. Okay. Now, moving next. Also, can you please, if you haven't do so, connect to our LinkedIn where you can receive a lot of our updates as well as our WhatsApp informations. Like today, there's a special talk. So what's right? We will put it onto the WhatsApp group as well. Take your handphone and scan this QR code and join us. Right? One more minute. Okay, building a world where every company is a sustainability superstar. And continue, please connect with us. Reach out to us. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Alex. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Hui Guang. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Lala. Yeah. Thank you. If you still have any burning question that you want to ask, please reach out to us. Reach out to us. Thank you. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Bye-bye. See you all.